Freya Lindström felt the crackle of cold even before she stepped through the crystalline doors of the Aurora Glacéd Ice Hotel. The rookie chef blew a plume of breath into the blue-white lobby, where frosted chandeliers hung like upside-down hedgerows of icicles. Everywhere she looked, moonlight and hidden LEDs refracted off surfaces carved from blocks hauled out of the torn river. It was Freya's first season away from Stockholm, and each dawn still felt like she'd slipped into someone else's fairy tale dream, one scented with juniper, pine smoke, and whatever bubbling experiment head chef Kurt Zarensson had conjured before sunrise. The Thursday should have unfolded like any other. She would bake cloudberry scones, simmer lingonberry reduction for the day's roast reindeer, and try not to chatter too much while Kurt watched her knife work. Instead, running a shortcut through the sculpture gallery, Freya came skidding to a halt. The glittering pedestal at the room's center stood empty. Yesterday, it had displayed Victor Novak's latest masterpiece, the Snow Queen, a life-sized figure with filigreed lacework and a silver crown. Hidden inside its translucent chest cavity, unknown to most guests, was Lady Astrid Bergen's diamond necklace, the Polar Star, scheduled to be unveiled at midnight during the midwinter gala. Freya's stomach somersaulted. Losing a centerpiece sculpture was bad enough, but misplacing a necklace rumored to be worth 7 million kroner could sink the hotel's reputation faster than spring thaw. She took 2 calming breaths, the air so cold her nostrils prickled, and hurried to find the general manager. Selma Johansson was in the glass-roofed conservatory, barking softly into her headset when Freya burst in. "The Snow Queen is gone," Freya blurted. Selma, a silver-haired woman whose tailored parka matched the hotel's icy palette, snapped her attention to the young chef. "Gone. Victor told me he locked the gallery at midnight." She pivoted, ordered 2 bellhops to guard the lobby, and asked Freya to walk her through everything she had seen. As they returned to the gallery, Freya noticed details she'd missed. A scattering of tiny ice chips along the edge of the pedestal, a faint crimson smudge on one shard, as if someone had nicked a finger while carving, or perhaps spilled sauce. The room was kept just below freezing, but not so cold that a careless touch wouldn't draw blood. Selma frowned and radioed for Victor and Kurt. Victor arrived first, frost still clinging to the tips of his beard. He took one look at the empty stand and let out a guttural check oath. This piece needed a specific crane to move. You can't just walk off with her in your arms. He ran callous fingers through his hair, then noticed the red-tinned shard. "That's not my mark. My chisels don't leave ridges like this." Kurt rushed in next, wiping his hands on his apron dusted with flour. "Is this a joke?" he asked, eyes darting between Freya and Selma. But Freya, watching him closely, saw something flicker behind the older chef's stern composure, apprehension, fatigue, before he stalked forward to examine the ice. When he straightened, that expression had vanished, replaced by cool professionalism. "We can cordon the gallery, Selma. No guests until we figure this out." By lunch service, whispers coursed through the corridors like river melt. The Snow Queen had waltzed away. Lady Astrid's Polar Star had dissolved into thin air. Meanwhile, housekeeping discovered wet boot prints in a rear service corridor, footprints that stopped beside an open maintenance hatch leading out to the snowfield. Selma contacted the Kiruna police, but with roads glazed in black ice and a blizzard predicted by nightfall, detectives wouldn't reach them for at least 12 hours. "We must keep the gala afloat," Selma declared at the staff meeting. "Freya, Kurt, you focus on the banquet. Victor, recreate something even if it's a swan." While trays clanged and tension thickened, Freya's mind spun faster than Kurt's stand mixer. She adored cozy whodunits set in sleepy English villages. Now she found herself living one, albeit a frozen high-stakes version. Nothing in culinary school prepped her for sluicing, but she had sharp observational skills and an instinct for when flavors or stories felt off, and the story told by those ice shards decidedly tasted off. Freya decided to examine the service corridor during her mid-afternoon break. The glow from the hotel's walls faded to deep sapphire as she descended a spiral stairwell rarely used by guests. At the bottom, she crouched to study the footprints. They were large and wide-soled snowmobile boots, she suspected, with a faint residue of sawdust embedded in the slush. Sawdust came from the carpentry shop where wooden molds for ice blocks were made. She followed the prints to a door that opened onto a courtyard strewn with snowdrifts. There the tracks vanished into wind-scoured white. Something else glinted by the doorway, a slender gouge of metal, pale and sharp. Freya recognized it instantly, a broken chisel tooth. She'd seen Victor's toolkit enough times to know his blades were forged with decorative cross-hatched handles. This splinter carried the same design, yet Victor swore nothing of his had gone missing. Did someone borrow a chisel to move the sculpture, or was Victor hiding his own involvement? A shiver wriggled under her parka. She pocketed the tooth, resolving to show it later to someone she trusted, if anyone qualified. Up to now, her most genuine ally had been Niels Rautio, the Sami wilderness guide who ran Aurora excursions for the hotel. Niels's job demanded reading trails invisible to tourists. Perhaps he could follow this one. She found him by the kennels, feeding the huskies. Snow powder coated his reindeer skin boots, and his fox fur hat sat at a jaunty angle above weathered cheeks. "Lose something important?" he teased when she approached, brandishing the kind of half-smile that quelled most worries. Freya explained in hushed tones. When she finished, Niels whistled. "Moving a life-sized ice queen would need at least 2 people. Or a sled. I saw fresh snowmobile tracks leading toward the river this morning. Could be unrelated, but—" He shrugged. "I can scout after I finish with the dogs." Back in the kitchen, Freya dived into prep work. Kurt paced, snapping at line cooks, while Lady Astrid's nephew, Henrik Berggren, lurked near the pass, tattling about potential menu mishaps. Henrik claimed to be family oversight, yet spent far more time sampling whiskey in the bar than supporting his aunt. Freya noticed he wore brand-new snowmobile boots, extra wide, the same kind she'd traced earlier. "Henrik," Freya said lightly, "did you venture outside today?" He arched a manicured eyebrow. "Just a spin on Emile's machine. Concierge perks, I suppose. Why?" "Because your boots match the prints," she thought, but smiled instead. "Just wondering how the trail was. Forecast says powder tonight." Henrik grinned and sauntered toward the lounge, the clinking of ice in his tumbler echoing after him. Kurd leaned beside her station. "Careful questioning guests," he murmured, "especially ones tipping the staff so generously." His tone was fatherly, yet his gaze flicked to her pocket as if he sensed the chisel tooth hidden there. Before she could reply, he strode off to check the venison marinade. Freya plated dessert testers, a swirl of sea buckthorn mousse inside delicate ice goblets Victor had shaped last week. She took one to Victor, who was slumped in a storeroom surrounded by half-formed sculptures. "They can't replace the Snow Queen overnight," he muttered. His hands trembled as he held the dessert. "Years I waited for a commission this grand. Now it's ruined. And people whisper I staged the theft for publicity." She offered the mousse, then carefully laid the broken chisel tooth on the table. "This looks like yours." "Found near the service exit." Victor studied it, shocked. "But I checked my kit. Nothing missing. Someone must have stolen a blade or forged an identical grip to frame me." He pushed the tooth back at her, desperation clouding his eyes. Freya had reached her limit of secrets. She marched to Selma's office, but the manager was on a video call with investors. Just outside, she heard raised voices drifting from the adjoining corridor. Recognizing Kurt's gravelly baritone and Emil the concierge's nasal tenor, she paused behind a column of sculpted ice. "It's tonight or never," Emil hissed. "Buyers waiting in Jukkasjärvi." "I told you I needed more time," Kurt retorted. "The necklace is one thing, but vandalizing Victor's work brings police." Freya's pulse hammered. "Emil and Kurt?" She edged closer, ice squeaking underfoot. Emil snapped, "Your debt collectors won't give you more time. Deliver the Polar Star and they forget you ever owed." Footsteps advanced. Freya ducked around the column and pretended to study a decorative reindeer when they emerged, tension etched across both faces. So Kurt was in trouble debts, threats. But did he really steal the necklace, and where was it now? Even if she accused them, without physical proof the confrontation would melt away like spring slush. At dusk, neon curtains of green and violet unfurled across the sky. Guests in fur-trimmed parkas gathered outside to gasp and snap photos, while Freya and Kurt orchestrated the gala feast. Yet beneath the festive bustle, nerves jangled like cracked ice. During main course service, Neil slipped into the kitchen, cheeks glowing from the cold. He waited until Kurt's back was turned, then murmured to Freya, "Your sculpture didn't go to the river. I tracked sled marks to the ice chapel. Something large dragged inside. Couldn't risk a closer look with guests around." The ice chapel stood 100 meters from the hotel, a vaulted space where couples exchanged winter vows beneath frozen chandeliers. After dessert left the pass, Freya grabbed her flashlight and covertly crossed the wind-whipped courtyard. The chapel door creaked open to reveal shadows dancing across pews carved from glacial blue blocks. At the altar, cloaked in shade, stood the Snow Queen, or what remained. The torso leaned sideways, arm broken, crown askew. Puddles formed where the sub-zero air couldn't outpace body heat. Someone had hacked the belly open, leaving jagged ribs of ice. Freya's throat constricted. That cavity once safeguarded the polar star. Now it was hollow. She examined the floor, spotting a smear of familiar crimson. Lingonberry reduction, the same sauce simmering in Kurt's pot that morning. A gust rattled the door behind her, and voices floated in. Freya extinguished her light and ducked behind a pew. Henrik Bergen entered, followed by Emil. Henrik held a leather pouch. Inside something clinked. "Still can't believe you stashed it in the pantry," Henrik whispered. Emil snorted. "No one suspects a concierge near the food. We just need Kurt to keep the chefs busy." Freya peeked. Henrik removed the necklace, aurora light flaring off diamonds. "Baia meets us at Jukkasjärvi airstrip, then we split." The men turned to leave, passing within meters of Freya's hiding spot. As they stepped outside, the wind stole their words, but Freya caught one last phrase. "Midnight. Snowmobile." She waited until their footsteps faded, then sprinted back to the hotel, lungs burning with cold and urgency. Niels intercepted her in the lobby. "I saw them heading to the garages," he said. "What's happening?" In a rapid whisper, she relayed everything. Niels whistled low. "We need evidence. Catch them red-handed." Freya's eyes flicked to the banquet hall. "And we need a diversion." Her culinary brain ignited. She and Nils huddled, concocting a plan more daring than flambéing aquavit in front of silk-draped dignitaries. 10 minutes before midnight, Freya rolled a silver cart into the gala, heart pounding. Conversations sparkled like champagne as she announced, "A surprise final course honoring the Northern Lights." She removed the lid. 5 ornate ice swans perched on a mirrored tray. Inside each swan, sea buckthorn mousse glowed amber under coloured LEDs, and a cascade of sugar diamonds spilled from their beaks. Henrik, standing near the bar, froze at the word diamonds. So did Emil, collecting coats. Around the room, gasps of delight erupted. Cameras flashed, and for a moment nobody noticed Selma Johansson quietly locking the main entrance while Niels secured side exits. The only way out now was through the garage. As guests admired the swans, Freya approached Henrik, feigning shy pride. "Would you do me the honour of presenting the first serving to Lady Astrid? The sugar diamonds will look wonderful against the real thing when she shows her necklace later." She watched the colour drain from his face. Henrik stammered, "The real thing?" Freya's eyes iced over. "Yes, the polar star. Selma just told me the police will arrive any minute to authenticate it." Nearby, Emil paled as well, clutching a set of keys. Henrik shoved past Freya, nearly toppling the dessert cart. Emil darted for the lobby, only to collide with a burly bellhop stationed by Niels. The chase careened through glittering hallways toward the garage, but snow had drifted against the exit doors Selma locked earlier. Trapped, they turned back, only to meet Kurt and Selma, flanked by 2 security guards. Under the glow of ice sconces, Freya stepped forward. "The necklace, Henrik." Her voice, calmer than she felt, broke the silence. Emil tried to bluster, claiming innocence, but Niels produced a small, motion-activated camera he'd planted earlier in the pantry, footage already playing on his phone. It showed Emil removing a gleaming object from a flower bin while Henrik kept watch. Cornered, Henrik retrieved the polar star from his pocket. Diamonds threw spears of cold light across the garage. Lady Astrid, summoned by Selma, arrived breathless, hand flying to her throat. "My mother gave me that necklace when I turned 21, she whispered. Tears misted her eyes, quickly replaced by steely fury aimed at her nephew. Police officers finally reached the hotel as the clock struck 12:30. Statements were taken in the lounge, now smelling of mulled wine and cooling venison. Henrik and Emil were escorted to a cruiser, dark figures against whirling snow. Kurt provided a written account of Emil's threats about his gambling debts and confessed he had kept silent out of fear, a cowardice that nearly destroyed his kitchen brigade. Selma promised him disciplinary review, but also counseling and debt assistance. "No more secrets in my hotel," she said firmly. When the chaos settled, Freya trudged outside. Curtains of emerald and amethyst rippled overhead, impossibly grand yet intimate, as though the heavens applauded her theatrics. Niels joined her, handing over a mug of hot cloudberry cider. "To rookie chefs turned detectives," he toasted. She laughed, cheeks stinging. "I almost ruined dessert with nerves. Worked out brilliantly," Niels said. "Swans were beautiful." He hesitated, studying the aurora. "Ever considered trading spatulas for magnifying glasses?" "I prefer mysteries I can eat afterward," she answered, leaning against him. Inside, Victor was already drafting sketches for a new Snow Queen. Selma insisted the hotel would sponsor a replacement, this time secured with state-of-the-art sensors. Lady Astrid, grateful, promised an exclusive reception once the sculpture returned to its pedestal. Kurt apologized to Freya over steaming mugs of coffee at 3 a.m., his eyes red but sincere. "You saved my job, my integrity, and probably my life," he said. Freya replied that everyone deserved a second rise in the oven, provided they didn't burn twice. Before stumbling to her ice suite for a few hours' sleep, Freya wandered back to the silent gallery. The empty pedestal still stood beneath twinkling lights, but now it felt hopeful rather than haunted. She imagined the new Snow Queen glimmering there soon, diamonds stored safely elsewhere, and her own reflection caught in the ice, a reminder that even rookies could shine when challenges hit sub-zero. Outside, dawn crept along the horizon, pink and gold brushing snowfields. Freya exhaled, watching her breath fade into crystal sparkles, and for the first time since discovering the missing sculpture, she allowed herself a simple, satisfied grin. In Swedish Lapland, beneath heaven's most dazzling lights, she had uncovered foul play, protected priceless jewels, and proved that the warmth of resolve could thrive even in a palace of frozen water. And tomorrow, like any good chef, she would tie her apron, preheat the ovens, and be ready for whatever mysteries might wander in with the icy wind.